Shifting focus to another very important country you've been focusing on, and the world is looking at today, given the Israel-Hamas war. Iran is in focus with Trump administration back. How do you look at, you not so long ago visited Iran?
Yes.
What are the facilities looking like? Are they as alleged closer to nuclear weapons? What's the enrichment levels that they have reached? And are we looking at a future where talks could resume between Iran and the West?
We certainly hope so, and they must. They must. We want to be in a situation, in a position where Iran can, through the IAEA, because we are the inspectors, through the IAEA, confirm to the world that all the activities that they are conducting, that they are carrying out, are exclusively for peaceful purposes. What is the problem then, you would ask? The problem is that in the past, and even today, Iran has not been as forthcoming as they should be. Iran has on occasion not given the necessary answers to our inspectors. And why I say this? Because we happened to find traces of nuclear activity, in this case uranium, we were talking about just now, in places that were not supposed to be hosting any nuclear activity. So what we have been struggling in our conversation with our Iranian counterparts is to find out, if I found this here, where is this material? Where is the equipment that was being used to process this material? And so we have been in a sort of a circular dialogue against the backdrop of something that you also mentioned, which is the fact that Iran is enriching uranium at a very high level, 60% of a certain isotope of the uranium, which is very close to the level that you need for a nuclear device, for a weapon, for a bomb. Does that mean they have a nuclear weapon? No, but it is not irrelevant. It means that they are amassing high amounts, very, very important amounts of material at a level which is not normally used for civilian or peaceful purposes. So there is an element of ambiguity somewhere. And this is what we are trying to find out. And this is what we are trying to clarify. And this has different levels, of course. There is the possibility of a dialogue between the United States and Iran. There is the former, you remember that there used to be an agreement called the JCPOA, where Iran had agreed on a number of things with the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, plus Germany that were there. And this agreement was sort of set aside. So that agreement today, people still talk about it, but in reality, it's not been followed.
But set aside by one country.
Initially, yes, and then Iran followed. So, and what we have now is this situation where there are no limits in what Iran is doing. So what we are trying is to help them clarify all these things so they can continue. You rightly framed this against the backdrop of a Middle East which is in a very particularly volatile phase of its traditionally difficult reality that we have been witnessing for more than half a century, maybe. So this is a recipe for something very, very, very dangerous, if you want. So we are trying to avoid the situation where we get to a point where maybe unilateral action will be taken, maybe we'll be moving into a military conflict, we don't know. So this is why we are at the moment in an intensive process of consultation. Yesterday I was talking to the Vice Minister for Foreign Affairs of Iran, who was returning from Beijing. You may have seen that there was a meeting, Russia, China. And so all the big players are talking, and of course it is indispensable that we are the only ones there.
Yes.
Inspecting, looking, seeing what's going on, are part of that and try to help.
But how is the IAEA engaging Washington, D.C. then? Because at this point in time, there are two important statements that have come. One is that President Trump has shown interest in negotiating with Iran, but the Supreme Leader, Khamenei, did not like the language of the US President. Is that more important, or is there room for negotiation over here where you'll see Iran and US coming to the talking table? And what role can IAEA play in ensuring that they come before Iran goes nuclear?
In any configuration, the IAEA will have to be there.
Yes.
Be it 5, 4, 3, whichever,
mix.
Geometrical form you give to the table, we have to be there, because otherwise you just have a piece of paper. If you don't have the inspectors verifying what happens, then there is no value in what you negotiate. I think there is, of course, a dimension which is more political in who talks to whom. Who talks to whom. And here we have all these players that used to be together. They are no longer together. This is a new reality. In the past, you used to see Russia, China, the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, all, if I may say so, relatively speaking, on the same side. And then Iran, and then there was a negotiation. Not anymore. Not anymore. So something very, very important has happened. Hence, this increasing importance of this bilateral, and of course the United States. Everybody is sort of, as in many areas of international life, is looking at what President Trump and the new administration is going to adopt as a policy. I think it's very important that in the message from President Trump, there is this idea of an agreement. Then, in diplomacy, in nuclear diplomacy, you can decline that in many ways, in many forms. But the fact that there is an outreach with the idea of an agreement, I think it is an interesting point of departure. Of course, there is a tit for tat. There are, words and sometimes even harsh words. But what we are looking from the perspective of the IAEA is how you decline this into a technically viable agreement that will prevent the appearance of a new nuclear weapon state in the international scene.